The Pentagon announced today 5 more detainees were released from Guantanamo. The 3 Yemenis and 2 Tunisians who had been held for more than a decade at the U.S. military prison have been flown to Kazakhstan for resettlement. All told, 28 detainees have been moved from the facility this year, the most since 2009, but 127 still remain. We're joined now by a reporter who has logged more time at the detention site in Cuba than any other, Carol Rosenberg of the Miami Herald. Carol, welcome to the NewsHour again. So 5 prisoners, 2 of them Yemenis, 3 of them Yemenis, 2 of them Tunisians, transferred to Kazakhstan. What is the significance of that destination?
I think that illustrates just how far-flung the State Department efforts have been to try to get the men who are cleared for release out of Guantanamo. That's the 20th nation to agree to take in as almost refugee status, as a resettlement, men who can't go home. You said they're from Yemen, which we heard earlier. There was more violence today, and they're from Tunisia, and the U.S. was not comfortable allowing them to return to their homelands. So they looked around the world, and Kazakhstan agreed to take them in. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just saying, and just recently we heard about 5 more that went to Uruguay, another unusual destination.
Yes, Uruguay was a really fascinating model for this, because President Mujica had decided that he would not only bring them in, he'd take in their families. And so we're waiting for actually the Syrian families of some of these detainees who were released to join them in Uruguay. The goal is for these men to settle down and start new lives in these countries, and to put behind them the dozen or so years they spent at Guantanamo. And again, it illustrates the inability to bring them to the United States as they look around the world for countries that will resettle the men who have been cleared for years to leave there, Gwen.
Let's talk about that. You talk about these men. They've been cleared for years. Who are they? Are they dangerous? Should anybody be worried about their release?
Well, one of the men who left yesterday was told 10 years ago, he was evaluated 10 years ago that as a low risk with a heart condition and bad health, and could not go back to Tunisia. So that the evaluation in 2004 for this Mr. Lufti was that he need not be at Guantanamo, but it illustrates just how hard it is to find places for them to move and start new lives. All 5 of these men, not one of them had been charged with a crime. They were all cleared by these National Security Task Force that met in 2009, and it was a matter of finding locations for them. It's not clear, you know, that they necessarily arrived there as hating the United States, but after all these years, the goal is to get them to the next place where they won't look back at their period at the detention center, but they'll look forward at whatever's been arranged for their next lives. Well, we don't know what they're going to have in Kazakhstan.
We've now seen 28 of these detainees released this year. Is this a trend we see? Is this something that's purposeful that's going on with this administration? And is it something that can continue, considering the fact there's so much resistance to this in Congress?
So 28 are gone, but 127 remain, of which 59 are cleared. So the only way to close Guantanamo is to move some of them to the United States. So if the goal is to get that detention center emptied and closed, you can find countries like Kazakhstan, but the real solution is to bring them to the States, which, as we know, Congress has forbidden, and it'll be up to the administration to either persuade them to change their mind or make a decision on whether to defy them. Guantanamo doesn't close unless some of those detainees come to the United States. Remember, some of these men are on trial for the 9/11 attacks, and one is on trial for the USS Cole attack. These men are not in a position to be sent to other countries and relocated elsewhere. The question will be if they are held and tried at Guantanamo or in the United States, and if convicted, where they will serve out their sentences, or in some instances, you know, these are death penalty cases.
And of the 60 which are cleared, we can expect, or we are anticipating to see them released in dribs and drabs or all at once in the next few months?
52 of them are Yemeni. It is a slow process of finding nations to take in Yemenis. And I think anyone who's sort of been seduced by the idea that they have 50 9 slots out there for the men who have been cleared for release are a little bit naive. The State Department closer is leaving his job as of tonight. The State Department still has diplomats, traveling the world trying to find locations. But this is far from closed, and the men who are cleared for release are far from getting on planes to go.
Carol Rosenberg on the case for the Miami Herald. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gwen.